bad polling news for Donald Trump, hypothetically. Bad polling news if the Democrats succeed, the Democrats who are trying to push out Joe Biden, if they succeed. And we know that this is something that Donald Trump is aware of, that if Joe Biden is replaced, that's going to be bad for him, because he continues to truth about it. Despite his new pro-unity stance, he truthed, from a political standpoint, an unprecedented event is happening. The Dems are trying again to get Biden off the ballot. He's not 100% wrong, but it is fairly unprecedented. That is true. And they are trying to do that. We don't know how successfully. We'll return to that. But here is the new poll. So this is 15,000 voters in 7 different battleground states. This is a massive sample, and it's the most consequential election. And so elections that are happening in 2024. So Politico is reporting alternative Democratic candidates run ahead of President Biden by an average of 3 points across the battleground states. Nearly every tested Democrat performs better than the president. This includes Vice President Harris, who runs better than the president, but behind the average alternative. The strongest potential candidates they polled are Arizona Senator Mark Kelly, Maryland Governor Wes Moore, Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro, and Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer. All 4 roughly outpaced Biden by roughly 5 points across the battleground states that were tested. And they also break down where that newfound support, or where the increased support versus the president comes from. Some comes from winning undecideds and those previously supporting a third party candidate. Some actually pull some votes from Donald Trump. All candidates continue to hold the Democratic base. There is no indication in the polling that were the Democrats to replace Joe Biden, Democrats around the country would just throw up their arms and be like, it's too chaotic. I can't figure it out. I'm out of the election.
The video will continue in just a moment, but first I have a message for you. TYT needs your help. Membership is vital to survival, so please go to tyt.com/team and become a member today.
And they say that voters clearly are looking for a fresh face. Those more closely tied to the current administration perform relatively worse than other tested candidates. And that's always been my theory about Vice President Harris. For all of her other benefits, she would have some of the status quo stink kind of on her just because she was there for it, even if it wasn't her fault or she wasn't responsible for it. So that's a lot. Not necessarily great news for Joe Biden as the Democrats try to push him off the ticket. But Sharon, what do you make of it?
Yeah, I think you're right too. And I'll start backwards with the VP. How do you shake off the stench of incumbency, the old guard? It's going to be difficult, not impossible. I wish I could have seen, I feel like these are the same polls when he was deciding if he'd run again. These people they weren't too keen on Joe Biden in the first place. And now here we are with this. But I just, polls can shift, polls can change. I think the current president has to stop whispering in these one-on-one interviews. They're not saying that because they are saying what you're revealing. And they do have to be listened to, but I just can't call it. And you can't always go by the polls too. We've learned that because people are more savvy and they like being devilish and kind of, sending pollsters up and down and spinning them around. But
that's true.
This is a problem. Any way you slice it, it's a problem.
Yeah, I agree. Also, by the way, you throw a jack onto the end of that, and it's the best Biden impersonation the Damage Report has ever seen. The whispering. Why don't you talk about that? That was pretty good. And by the way, I want to be very clear, as I've said, I am not one of the people that says that if he is not replaced, that's it. There's no chance. I don't believe that. I believe that the chance is not good enough. That's why I've been personally advocating for it. But I don't think it's a 0% chance. I don't think it's a 5% chance. Candidates are super important, obviously, in elections, but in presidential elections, there are tons of fundamentals that do affect the outcome. Now, you would expect them to be reflected in the polling right now, and so that still doesn't look very good, but there is still some time. And so, but that doesn't mean that it should be inevitable or that they have to stick with him. So we'll see, we're gonna see. Today's a critical day. I think this week is critical. And also I wanna say, there is some indication that Biden gets that he needs to do more to win over some of these voters. And so he says he's calling for a 5% cap on annual rent increases. And he's also set to announce support for major reforms to the Supreme Court. Now, we're also gonna be super clear. Would he actually do this? I don't know. Would any of it pass? Definitely not. But he is at least saying some of the right things, which is an indication that he understands the tenuous position he's in. Thanks for watching our video. Did you know that you can support our show by becoming a subscriber? Just click the subscribe button and also ring the bell so that you get notifications when we're live or when we post new content.